Hello everyone and welcome to Scale Your Sales podcast. Now, have you ever thought, do I really need to spend all of this time crafting a value proposition? What is the real value of it? Well, today I have Glen Williamson who's going to tell us more about that. And I tell you what, I met Glen, we were both speaking at the Women in Sales Summit, and I had planned to come to his session. And I got in a conversation with some people and then I missed it. So I'm going to try and squeeze as much out of him about the session because, you know, he'll probably never let me live this down for the rest of my life that I promised to come to his session and didn't. Not that he came to mine, actually, but, yeah, but I'm not bitter. So Glen is a consultant sales director, international sales trainer, speaker, and accredited master coach, a fellow of the Institute of Sales Management, and is co-author of the Amazon #1 bestseller, Sales Genius. So we're expecting a lot from him, Sales Genius #1. So taking his 33 plus years, look at him, he doesn't look old enough, does he? Years of experience in sales and business development, Glen develops training courses, methodologies and strategies that drive breakthrough results and transform sales professionals and business owners understanding how to sell. Okay, so welcome to the Scale Your Sales podcast, Glen.
Thank you, Janice. It's lovely to be here.
Brilliant. So I do want to get into value propositions, Glen.
Sure.
So tell me why you say it's the basis of all sales interaction.
Well, it's never really not been, but more so today than ever. It is absolutely essential that salespeople have value-based conversations. In this more complex and competitive environment, I think buyers have to buy based on value. So it's really important that the salesperson knows exactly what they're selling and exactly what value they are adding to the customer's world. So having this as a basis of your sales approach is game-changing. Now, I lead, manage, coach, train salespeople, hundreds of salespeople per month across the world. The salespeople that I lead who have value propositions sell consistently and predictably. The salespeople that I lead, coach and train who don't have value propositions are random. It's the reason, the value proposition or the lack of a value proposition is a reason why salespeople so struggle to get in front of their key clients. It's the reason why when they're in front of their clients, they fail to really connect. And it's the reason why when they leave their clients, they're not remembered, they're forgotten. And it's because they're not having powerful conversations at the heart of the matter for their clients, with their clients.
So it's about understanding what value you bring to the table, whether you're having a telephone conversation or a face-to-face meeting, being really clear of the value that you're adding to the customer.
Yeah, absolutely. In my Heart of the Matter workshop, I have salespeople identify their buyer personas, get to the heart of what's really important to them and why they would buy, and I help them to articulate their sales message based on that and that alone.
I see. So is this like a one-day workshop that you do, or you have it online?
It is a one-day or a half-day workshop. With a one-day workshop, we actually create the value propositions. With a half-day workshop, I show you how to create the value propositions. But I would never go to a potential client myself without a value proposition that I've crafted myself, that is on a sheet that I've reviewed before the meeting, so that I can talk about what's important to them and provide value in that discussion. I wouldn't dream of it. Now, done properly, when you understand the problem that they have and they don't want, and the result that they want and don't have, and then how you can transform their world, you realize that there are only 3 conversations that we are having as professional salespeople: the problem, the result, and the transformation. And when you start to have conversations at the heart of the matter based on those three well-contextualized discussions, then the conversation is pure value for the buyer, pure value.
I was smiling there. I'm thinking, I can imagine you doing this in your personal life as well.
It has been known.
I mean, like when we have a technique and it works, doesn't mean to say it doesn't work in our personal life along with our professional life. It's about articulating and communicating to people. So why wouldn't you use it for everything?
Perfect, Janice. There is no difference between selling something while you're at work and selling something while you're at home. And selling is what we do as human beings. It's who we are. It's how we differentiate ourselves. It's how we become happier, more enlightened. It permeates every area of our lives. And once we get that, what we understand is that providing value in a relationship with your wife or your brother or your sister or your mother is exactly the same as providing value with your customer. And that requires you to get into their world and to really understand them so that you can provide value based on who they are and who you are. It's about alignment, isn't it? It's about alignment. That's what we're trying to do all the time. This whole relationship selling fallacy grew out of the need to align. It's more about value. If you really want to develop a relationship, if you really want to get closeness with somebody or with a customer, provide value. That's the way to do it.
That's interesting. You say the relationship thing is a fallacy. Can you explain that a bit more?
Yeah, I think it's a really unhelpful oversimplification to reduce sales to it's all about relationships. But it's one of the most common things I hear from salespeople. They believe that the better the relationship they have, the more the customer will buy. It's simply not true. That is not the way people buy. People buy because you are able to transform them from where they are now to where they need to be, because they want to solve problems and to generate results. Now, the relationship is extremely helpful, there's no doubt about it, but to reduce selling to it's all about relationships is not helpful, and it is the cause of mediocre sales results right across the world right now.
I think that's really interesting, because then are you saying that you can have, a mediocre relationship, but if you've got the value proposition right, you're going to sell, as opposed to having an average value proposition, but a brilliant relationship?
Yeah, spot on. I sold a multi-million-pound contract for one of my clients to one of my prospects a few years ago, and I didn't get on that well with the buyer at all. Me and the buyer clashed in the whole diagnosis phase of the sale, but the way I solved the problem was so powerful that he had to go with that solution. Now, that is rare. I normally get on with everybody, but a relationship is not the key. The key is trust and understanding. It's not enough to say people buy from people. But it is relevant to say that people buy from people who they believe understand them. That takes away the oversimplification. Once you get into a level of understanding, and out of that comes trust, then you can reduce it to relationships somewhat. But ultimately, selling is all about creating and providing value in a way that resonates with your buyer.
I find this really interesting, because all of this thing about the know, like and trust, and you're kind of saying, well, that's not as relevant really, and the trust bit is, but you're saying that you don't really need to like, and know that person. And a lot of the social world is looking at making connections, understanding one another, but you're saying you don't even need to like one another. And that seems a bit kind of counterintuitive, really.
Well, I'm saying that what I'm really saying is that it's not about relationships. Selling cannot be reduced to relationships. It helps to be liked, and it helps to like. Knowing is really overestimated in our society. We all know people who know us but don't understand us. But real relationship comes from understanding. So it's just about naming things correctly and understanding them in the correct perspective. Yeah, whenever I go into a potential client, the reason why I want to be with that client and really listen to them and really understand them is not so that I can develop a great relationship with them, because I think relationships help me sell. The reason why I really want to be with them, understand them, and get on well with them is because I want to understand how I can add value to their world. That's what we do in sales. We contribute. We cannot be a contribution unless we understand somebody. You know, if I had a choice of two salespeople, one was a slick salesperson who was fantastic at developing relationships and had all the sales skills in the world, and the other person was really skilled at understanding their customers, I would choose the latter, the one who really is good at understanding people, because that is the person who can add value and sell more consistently and more predictably.
I find this really interesting. I was on a podcast with someone, I think a few weeks ago, and we were talking about, you know, the phrase knowledge is power. Well, it's not, it's the insight that is power, and it's similar to what you're saying. Really
Absolutely.
understanding. Yeah.
Yeah, the knowledge is so overestimated. It's understanding that's the key. There's no point taking on knowledge if you don't have understanding as the foundation for that knowledge. And then you can see in this information age, everybody's taking on lots and lots of knowledge everywhere. It's consuming information at an unbelievable rate. But are we wiser? I mean, look at the people who are leading our world. You know, are we really in great shape?
Yeah, let's not look at the people that are...
No, let's not. But I'd rather get rid of knowledge and increase my understanding, quite frankly.
Yeah, no, I really, really interesting. I'm going to change the subject, mix it up a little bit, and talk about diversity in sales. Now, you're a black man, I'm a black woman, and it's really interesting. When I ask people about diversity, they always think I'm talking about gender. And I'm thinking, well, diversity is so much wider than that, but I have to pick you up on something that you have said, and in terms of diversity of thought. So I'll ask you the question. We'll talk about diversity of thought a little bit, because that's a real bugbear of mine, I'm afraid, Glen. So yeah, what is your view on a diversity in sales? Is it an issue? And, you know, if it is, how do you think it should be solved?
Well, I think it's an issue in certain industries. In certain industries, I think you do see diversity. I think you see diversity of race, gender, and thought. But in many industries I'm working in, currently I'm in the exhibition space and the construction space and the oil and gas space. With my clients are in those, mainly in those three areas. And yeah, I see a lack of diversity. Now, I always question why would certain types of people want to get into certain types of industries, and I'm happy with the fact that they don't. However, I think that those industries should try and encourage more diversity in, because when you have diversity of people, you have diversity of thoughts, you have generation of new ideas, new ways of looking at things, and you can start to think differently and create transformation in the way you do things that creates competitive edge more proactively, rather than just doing the same old thing over and over and over again. Certainly, as the sale becomes more complex, diversity becomes more vital, because then you're able to generate more ideas. And I see, when I see sales forces with different cultures collaborating, different genders collaborating, different thoughts into the mix, I see creativity at a level that I don't see elsewhere. And that's why I think it's important. It makes the boat go faster.
Certainly, I mean, I would agree with you. My bugbear is on the diversity of thought, because it's this kind of more modern thing that's come up, and I think it's the distraction on the real issues on diversity of people. Because the thing is, if you have a diversity of people, you've got a diversity of thought. The problem is when they put diversity of thought on the agenda, they concentrate on that and they ignore the real issue. So I'd like to eradicate diversity with thought, because, you know, different people think differently anyway, you know, kind of thing. So let's just get the different people and we're going to think anyway.
Yeah, nice. I like it.
What you say about your, you know, the industries that you work in. And, you know, you do see these programs to try and encourage, you know, a diverse workforce, but it doesn't always work. Why do you think that is?
Well, the commitment to it isn't deep enough. You know, Well, I don't know how far down this rabbit hole I should go, but
We've only got about a minute, so you know that.
Okay, cool. That works. It's about commitment. Where a company is determined to create a diverse workforce, they create a diverse workforce. Where they don't, it's a function of commitment. Their true commitment to seeing it through. Yeah. That's my view.
Yeah.
That's why it doesn't work.
Yeah, I think that's a great view, because
commitment, by the way, needs an understanding, a basis of understanding.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so what is your one tried and tested offer to listeners, or strategy to listeners, that would help them to scale their sales?
Without a doubt, in this modern environment, you have to have a value proposition. You have to have a properly well-crafted value proposition based on the 3 conversations. I go into it in some detail in the white paper that I've just completed, called The Curse of the Modern Sales Professional and How to Overcome It, which is going to be offered free to your listeners who listen to this podcast. And the value proposition helps you to really craft your thinking about your value and understand what you really offer to your clients. And at the same time, it helps you to really understand your client at a level which means you will align as soon as you have the conversation. I cannot imagine how people are selling consistently without a value proposition. It's foundational. It's one of the 2 or 3 foundational things that every salesperson must have going forward.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that offer. And lastly, who is your hero or shero? Tell us why.
Well, there's so many I could choose. I think the one I would choose is one of the books that I really keep next to me all the time and I constantly refer to is called 3 Magic Words by Ulysses S. Anderson. It was written in the 60s, but it is such a powerful series of essays based on a principle that's really important to me. And what it gets us understanding is that so we can create the lives we want and live them powerfully. And I would say that book has had such a major impact on my life over the last, let's say, 10 years, that I'm going to have Ulysses Anderson as my hero right now.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. And I'll also put a link in with the show notes here. So lastly, Glen, how can everybody, as I'm sure they will want to, contact you?
My website is www.glenwilliamson.co.uk. Love to hear from you. So much to talk about in the realm of selling, and I never say no to a conversation about how to sell.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, thank you very much for being a guest on Scale Your Sales podcast, Glen.
Absolute pleasure. Lovely talking to you, Janice. Hope to see you soon.